Hello everybody, welcome back to Witchfix, and today we're looking at a very special book from my childhood. So I used to get these stories on audiobook from the library. This is when audiobooks came on tapes in the 90s, because I'm old. But I kind of wanted to review them for the podcast because they do feature a witch, and it just made me laugh to go back and read the first one for myself. For the first time, I don't think I've ever had these as actual books instead of audiobooks. And that is book one in the Ms Wiz series, Ms Wiz Spells Trouble. So this first book came out in 1988 by Terence Blacker, a British author. And I think there are currently 22 books in the series. I could be wrong. Different sources say 18 and 22, but there's quite a lot, and these are incredibly short books for young readers. So they're only about 60 pages, averaging maybe 20 to 30 words per page. So they're not lengthy by any means. I read this one in about 10 minutes, but they are great options for young readers who are interested in stuff to do with witches. And I thought this might be nostalgic for a couple of other people who watch the podcast. So I decided to go and get the first one. So the blurb for the first book is this. Things are certainly livened up at St Barnabas School when Class 3's new teacher arrives. She has a magic rat, a rather rude owl, and some very special powers. But when Podge's dad is turned into a warthog and the school inspector loses his trousers, Class 3 has to admit Ms Wiz Spells Trouble. So essentially, Ms Wiz in the series is a combination of Ms Frizzle and Nanny McPhee. So she's a supply teacher or a temporary teacher at this school. She comes in, she's very unusual looking. When this came out in the 1980s, she would have been even more unusual looking. But she comes in, she wears jeans and funky tops, and she has black nail polish and black lipstick. I was obsessed. And she decides to start doing magic for Class 3 and doing little spells and things that they keep secret. And then at the end of the book, she leaves, but she promises to return and come to each member of the class as and when they need her, sort of similar in that sort of Nanny McPhee way, which is what I guess the next couple of books in the series are about. I remember one where she comes back and changes one of the girls into a cat for some reason. I'm not sure what that accomplishes, but there you go. So we have these sort of short, funny adventure stories featuring Ms Wiz, the witch supply teacher. And I was reminded of this series just seeing the Magic School Bus getting its reimagining, because I used to love to watch the Magic School Bus. We did get that occasionally on terrestrial television in the UK when I was growing up. And seeing that was pretty cool. But Ms Frizzle isn't really a witch in my understanding. She's just kind of weirdly magical. But there's a lot more witchy elements about Ms Wiz, which we're going to get into in a moment. See, because this is such a short book, and I thought, well, me talking about it is only going to take so much time and that won't really make a proper episode, I'm going to read chapter 1 to you guys now. Settle down, get comfy, fetch yourself some hot chocolate, and we shall begin. Chapter 1, A New Arrival. Most teachers are strange, and the teachers at St Barnabas School were no exception. Yet it's almost certain that none of them, not Mr Gilbert, the head teacher, who liked to pick his nose during assembly, not Mrs Hicks, who talked to her teddies in class, and not Miss Gomez, who smoked cigarettes in the lavatory, none of them was quite as odd as Class 3's new teacher. Some of the children in Class 3 thought she was a witch. Others said she was a hippie. A few of them thought she was just a bit mad, but they all agreed that there had never been anyone quite like her at St Barnabas before. This is her story. I wonder what you think she was. As soon as their new teacher walked into the classroom on the first day of term, the children of Class 3 sensed that there was something different about her. She was quite tall, with long black hair and bright green eyes. She wore tight jeans and a purple blouse. Her fingers were decorated with several large rings and black nail varnish. She looked as if she was on her way to a disco, not teaching at a school. Most surprising of all, she wasn't frightened. Class 3 was known in the school as the problem class. It had a reputation for being difficult and noisy, for having what was called a disruptive element. Miss Jones, their last teacher, had left the school in tears. But none of that seemed to worry the strange-looking new teacher. "My name is Miss Wisdom," she said in a quiet but firm voice. "So what do you say to me every morning when I walk in?" "Good morning, Miss Wisdom," said Class 3 unenthusiastically. Wrong, said the teacher, with a flash of her green eyes. You say, "Hi, Ms Wiz." Jack, who was one of Class 3's disruptive element, giggled at the back of the class. "Yo," he said in a silly American accent. "Why, hi, Ms Wiz." Caroline, the class dreamer, was paying attention for a change. "Why is it Ms, she asked. "Well," said Ms Wiz, "I'm not a Mrs. because I'm not married, thank goodness, and I'm not Miss because I think Miss sounds silly for a grown woman, don't you?" "Not as silly as Ms," muttered Katrina, who liked to find fault wherever possible. "And why Wiz?" asked a rather large boy sitting in the front row. It was Podge, who was probably the most annoying and certainly the greediest boy in the class. "Wiz," said Miss Wiz with a mysterious smile. "Just you wait and see." Miss Wiz reached inside a big leather bag that she had placed beside her desk. She pulled out a china cat. "That," she said, placing the cat carefully on her desk, "is my friend Hecate the cat. She's watching you all the time. She sees everything and hears everything. She's my spy." Ms Wiz turned to the blackboard. "Weird," muttered Jack. An odd hissing sound came from the china cat. Its eyes lit up like torches. "Hecate sees you even when my back is turned," said Ms Wiz, who now faced the class. "Will the person who said weird spell it, please?" Everyone stared at Jack, who blushed. "IT?" he stammered. No one laughed. W-I... Wrong, said Ms Wiz. W-E-I-R-D. "If you don't know how to spell a word, Jack, don't use it." She patted the china cat. "Good girl, Hecate," she said. "How did you know my name?" whispered Jack. The new teacher smiled. "Children, remember one thing. Ms Wiz knows everything. Now," she said briskly, "pay attention, please. Talking of spelling, I'm going to give you a first lesson in casting spells." "Oh, great," said Katrina grumpily. "Now we've got a witch for a teacher." Hecate the cat hissed angrily. "No, Katrina, I'm not a witch," said Ms Wiz sharply. "We don't call them witches these days. It gives people the wrong idea. We call them paranormal operatives. Now, any suggestions for our first spell?" Podge put up his hand immediately. "Could we turn our crayons into lollipops, please, Miss?" he asked. "No," said Ms Wiz. "Spells are not for personal greed." "How about turning Class 2 into frogs?" asked Katrina. "Nor are they for revenge. There will be no unpleasant spells around here while I'm your teacher," said Ms Wiz before adding, almost as an afterthought, "unless they're deserved, of course." She looked out of the window. In the playground, Mr Brown, the school caretaker, was sweeping up leaves. "Please draw the playground," said Ms Wiz. "Imagine it without any leaves. The best picture will create the spell." Almost for the first time in living memory, Class 3 worked in complete quiet. Katrina didn't complain that someone had nicked her pencil. Caroline managed to concentrate on her work. Podge forgot to look in his trouser pocket for one last sweet. Not a single paper pellet was shot across the room by Jack. At the end of the lesson, Ms Wiz looked at the drawings carefully. "Well, they're all quite good," she said eventually, "but I think I like Caroline's the best." She took Caroline's drawing and carefully taped it to the window. "Please close your eyes while I cast the spell," she said. There was a curious humming noise as Class 3 sat, eyes closed, in silence. "Open," said Ms Wiz after a few seconds. "Regard Caroline's work." The children looked at Caroline's drawing. It was steaming slightly, and in one corner there was a freshly drawn pile of leaves. "Hey, look at the playground!" shouted Katrina. Everyone looked out of the window. To their amazement, the leaves on the ground had disappeared. Mr Brown stood by his wheelbarrow, scratching his head. "Weird," said Jack. "Very weird indeed." That's chapter 1 of the book. I really enjoyed reading that. That was great fun. It does suffer a little bit from that kind of like children's book, like early 90s kind of thing. Like we've got to have like the fat greedy child a la Bruce Bogtrotter in the class. Everyone's kind of stereotyped in a certain way. But, you know, that's what kids' books tend to be like. What I like about it is that it just sort of introduces Ms Wiz as a witch, but not as like a scary, evil witch. She's fun. She looks like a normal person, just with a slight difference to her sort of fashion sense. Later we find out that she lives in just a normal flat, and she instantly lays down these rules for magic where you're not going to hurt anybody and you're not going to do magic just selfishly for yourself. You're going to do it for other people to do other things. And I would say she breaks some of those rules in this book because she does turn someone into a warthog, but by and large I think she manages to stick to them, and it's all sort of like fun, sort of like kid-friendly magic. By the end of the book, she's turned class 3 from being this like disruptive, uncontrollable class to being the class that gets all the end of term prizes, and she doesn't seem to have done it by doing any magic on people. Like, she uses magic, like she brings in her magical owl to a lesson so that they can learn maths. She teaches them about the French Revolution and they reenact certain parts of it in the playground, but she seems to actually be teaching them things, which is pretty good. And I kind of credit this book with my original ambition to become a teacher. I guess because this sort of just made me feel like it would be fun and interesting to be a teacher. I'm not saying it isn't, I'm just saying that I didn't become one, and that was for a reason. Aside from teaching us a little bit about, you know, how witches can be normal people, how magic isn't necessarily an evil thing, there's also quite a lot of sort of assumptions being made about Ms Wiz, people having prejudices against her. There's 2 teachers at the school who take against her because she has black nail varnish and she doesn't dress like a teacher and she doesn't keep her class sitting down learning in silence like they think a teacher should. There are like parents who think that she's weird because she's getting their kids to actually be interested in reading and things like that. But I think it is a good book that kind of teaches about like assumptions being made about people based on like the way they look, especially like in terms of like the new age community or like the slightly more alternative community. I'm pretty sure everyone's had like weird looks because of something that they were wearing or a way that they decided to do their makeup and what have you. So it's that as well, but most of all, it's just like a fun, silly book series for children. So if you are one of the people who has very young children or who works with very young children and wants to like read them a story or provide them with a positive image of witches, then this series is a great one. Like I said, a bit dated now because it came out in like the 1980s, late 80s. But from that extract that I just read, you can see that not a lot of it is hugely reliant on modern day stuff and slang and things like that. It's written very much in basic English. So I don't think it is as dated as it could have been, like looking back on it. Can't say the same for the other books in the series, which include but are not limited to Time Flies for Ms Wiz, Power Crazy Ms Wiz, Ms Wiz Loves Dracula, Ms Wiz Smells a Rat, You're Kidding Ms Wiz, and Ms Wiz Supermodel, as well as In Stitches with Ms Wiz, You're Nicked Ms Wiz, which for anyone who isn't British, that means you've been arrested. In Control Ms Wiz, Ms Wiz Goes Live, and Ms Wiz Banned. So lots of different stories and things, and they seem to like have a variety of different things going on in them. Like in one cover she's dressed as Queen Elizabeth, in another she's dressed as Dracula, then in a business suit dressed like a Hollywood starlet. So it seems like she gets about a bit and goes to some incredible different adventures. But yeah, definitely if you were a fan of the Magic School Bus and you're looking for something to bring you a little bit of that childhood joy, pick up one of these books. They're so cheap because they're so little. You can literally just send them as like a letter in the post, and that's how thin they are. So if you see them out and about, or if you want to get hold of them, I did check on Amazon, like Audible. I couldn't find any audiobook versions, unfortunately, because I really do love the old audiobooks that I used to listen to as a child. But I recently came into the possession of a tape converter, so I'm going to be converting some audio tapes, if I can actually find the cassettes, into MP3s, so I can continue to enjoy those. And I might, depending on how that works with like copyright, see if I can point you towards any way you might be able to download those stories. In the meantime, let me know what your favourite childhood series about witches was in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!